Hi, I'm Dede, and welcome to the third episode of my podcast. In today's episode, I have a very interesting guest with me. She's got such a unique perspective on art, life, and everything. She's a Moroccan-Dutch living in the Netherlands. She is a performing artist, an actress, and a singer. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce all of you to Laila.
Thank you.
Laila, thank you so much for coming. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you today, primarily because of like the last discussion that we had at the cafe. I remember you mentioning a lot about movement and how, during your time in Netherlands and, how you've observed a lot of people restricting themselves to a limited set of movements. Like they would sit down, stand up, scroll their phone, look left, right, and like every movement was identical. It was almost as if people were following a hard-cut framework or a rule book of sorts, right? And that self-expression was very limited.
Sure.
It is so true because I remember having a conversation with a friend, and he stops mid-conversation and he goes, "You're so animated. It's fun to look at you." And in my head, it was like, well, I like to express myself during a conversation. I like use my hands and my eyebrows, and I'm very expressive. And obviously, I did not get offended just because, he was like, "You're animated." But I felt like this is just self-expression. This is how I like to pour my heart and soul into every interaction I have with a person. Not necessarily animated, but just a pure form of expression. My question to you would be, how do you feel like movement can help people unlock deeper parts of their identity? How do you feel like movement can do that?
Beautiful question. I feel definitely movement does that.
Yeah.
Whether if it's through just vibration, like we go to a club and we have the music and the speakers are pumping and it literally vibrates our body and, toxins go out, leave our body.
Yeah.
But also in daily life, we're constantly interacting with our environment. And this idea that we as a human being are sort of a solid, steady thing, unmovable, is not true. So I think we can have much more perspective on ourselves as also an organic thing that is within everything that is moving around it.
Yeah. And I don't think movement has to be just dancing necessarily.
Sure.
Yeah. Like movement in general can be somatic therapy, yoga, Pilates, and strength training, endurance training, like running, absolutely anything. And I feel like it also allows to add to what you're saying. It also adds to your personality. And you kind of, let me give you an example, right? Like one time I used to think that I lacked discipline and that I'm very inconsistent, which I was at like one part of my life. I was quite inconsistent and, but then I ended up being like, hey, no, I want to see if I'm actually not as disciplined as I think I am. I kind of wanting to prove myself wrong. So I ended up like starting the gym. I ended up going to the gym and doing my workouts. It wasn't like these crazy workouts, but I did what I was capable, what my body was capable of doing. And I just kept showing up. And I realized that, hey, like I'm actually a pretty consistent person. And I feel like movement, any type of movement, if you take the first step to try it out, it helps you to really understand deeper aspects of yourself.
Sure, yes.
Like, and I'm sure as a Moroccan-Dutch living in the Netherlands, it must have been quite the experience for you growing up. How do you feel like your cultural heritage has influenced your take on movement?
Interesting. Yeah, I think for sure, indeed, in the Netherlands, because I also didn't grow up in Amsterdam, like more in a village. Even though the village people were very nice because they knew us, but as as soon as I would go out of the village a bit or into the city, or people would always look at me as a foreigner in a negative sense of the word. So I learned very fast how to be a people pleaser, how to behave, how to frame myself in terms so that people would accept me as at least hopefully one of them, or at least not as a threat.
To fit in.
To fit in. And so I think if I hadn't had movement, if I hadn't had dance in my life, I think I would have been a completely different person. I would have imploded. I don't know where I would have ended. So movement is very important in my life, like to express myself, to find a way. And well, when you say about the gym, I think for a lot of people that is a very safe place to go if you're a dancer, professional dancer. But if you're a person who's maybe not so comfortable moving their body out of the, let's say, the sitting, the sleeping, the eating, the working behind the office.
Yes.
Other kinds of movements are maybe very new or different. Then the gym is very nice very accessible, right?
Yeah.
Because there's still the frame of, okay, there's this device and I have to use this device in exactly this kind
There's
of
a
way.
way to go about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then people will accept it.
Yeah.
You know, no matter how you look, you're in the gym, you're doing that movement. That's when it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
But I also think it's definitely, I don't try to downgrade it. I think it's a very beautiful, accessible way to start movement. But from there, maybe it's also interesting to see, okay, you've gotten this more awareness into the body now. What does your body want to do? You know, instead of what is the framework in the gym, what does your body want to express? You know, where do you feel it? Our body is giving a lot of information also, like if you have pains or aches, or, you know, you feel like, oh, maybe you want to stretch in a certain way, or maybe you want to move somewhere, or, you know.
But the moment you do it, people look at you all weird, right?
Yeah.
They look at you like, what are they on? I want some of what they're having. Like, it's always the thing. I find myself in situations where if I'm fully expressing myself, even like an interaction similar to this, they go like, do you think you're in some reality TV show? Why are you so like, this self-expression thing is almost like an abnormal thing to them, an anomaly. And where do you think this stems from? This negative outlook on expression. I feel like, because just imagine us at the metro or wherever, just like going stretching, and we're like stretching, and we're like doing all these like crazy things, and we feel like moving our shoulders, and immediately people are like, yep, like they want attention, or they just want people to look at them, or they can stretch. Well, good for you. Like it feels illegal to be yourself.
Exactly.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Where does it stem from? Yeah. I mean, I do think definitely the West has taken a lot of things from tribal traditions and traditions all around the world.
Yeah.
So I do blame a little bit the West in terms of, especially the elite, like when the way you have to act, like the hierarchy, where do you stand? There's certain ways to behave. If you don't behave in that way, then you're outcast of some sort. I actually have a good example of being half Moroccan, is that actually in Morocco, there used to be a lot more traditional dances. There are still traditional dances.
Right.
Thank God. But there used to be way more. In every village, there would be traditional dances. Now, I know that Morocco is a Muslim country, so a lot of people associate it thinking maybe, I'm Muslim, so dance is haram, you cannot do it, so it's not. Actually, what I've heard, I've been in Morocco this year again, and I've got some sources from there saying that actually it was the French colonizing Morocco, then taking away their traditions because everything that was Moroccan was seen as less, right?
Right.
The more French you were, the more elite, the better. So also if you're a colonizer, you want to climb up that ladder because you want to earn money for the family or whatever, you will even strip away things of your own blood, of your own tradition, in order to fit in again, right?
Yeah.
And so after this thing got a bit mixed up with, but actually in Islam, actually in dance is also haram, so that's why we don't dance. But that's actually not the way it went. It went from colonized in the country. And that dance wasn't seen just as a sexual or a sensual thing, right?
Yeah.
That's what it.
Yeah.
But no, it's a way of expressing. It's a way of communicating. It's a way of mourning someone who we lost. It's exercising demons. It's there's many traditions where dance is used as a communication tool
to celebrate community.
As well.
Yeah. It's interesting that you mentioned a very important point where a lot of the times dance is sexualized, especially when women do it. I found myself in a situation one time where, I'm very comfortable with like feminine movement, and I like, there's a certain dance style that I follow, like it could be whacking or commercial or whatever it is, right? And sometimes you are just really comfortable with your body and sensuality, and you want to feel sexy, and we just dance, right? We're just expressing ourselves. And funnily enough, I found myself in a conversation with an individual who outright really told me, oh yeah, like what you do is like sexual dancing. It's just vulgar dancing. And it just blew me away. And I'm like, what do you mean? This is expression. You know what I mean? And it's just so crazy. And it just, when you brought up the point, I recall that incident. And you also said, obviously the people were trying to fit in, right? With the whole colonization thing. And you tried to fit in too, growing up in Netherlands. How did you try to fit in? What changes did you do to yourself? What parts of you did you reject to fit in?
Well, I think in terms of appearance, because that's the big thing. Because I was surrounded when I was younger with other girls who were like blonde, blue-eyed, tall, usually, right? So I didn't have an idea that I was different because I look from my eyes. I see, So I only get an idea of who I am from feedback from outside. So what other people think of me. So as soon as I think I understood this, because I don't want to stand out in a negative sense. I don't want to stand out where people already have a certain expectation of me. So I would do my best. Like I had a period where I was like trying to dye my hair partially blonde, I had a period where I was even straightening the curl. It just was like, because these curls, that's where, the Moroccan is shown through. So people see the dark curls and then they see it and they right away think, she's foreign.
Right.
But also in terms of behaving, of course, like I love expressing myself, but it felt like I always had to make my space around me smaller, be as small as I can be. And for that, I can also make a connection actually to what you said about being a woman, so expressing ourselves as a woman in this world.
Yeah.
That's another layer, because I feel for a lot of people, if they actually see the strength and expression that we women have, that's very intimidating, and actually we can expand so much. Our auras can become huge. And I have the feeling, with me, it's a lot the theme that I've always made myself very small. But thank God I found the stage so I can go on stage and like explode again. And then in daily life again, I would be like.
When did you make that decision? You were like, I just don't want to shrink myself anymore just so that people are going to accept me and talk to me and make me feel included. Like, I'm done with this shit. Like, when did you make that choice to be like, no, it's not worth my peace?
Well, unfortunately, I don't have one moment.
All right, yeah.
Because what I've realized is even if you decide on changing, it's such a pattern that's in you, it always will come back in new situations. Like I arrive in Japan, I arrive in Sri Lanka, I feel I need to adapt again. I want to people please, I want to understand the culture, which is also beautiful because then at least I don't have this, I know how it works and I'll be who I am.
Yeah.
Yes, but it's better to, I think, also always go through the back door, be like, okay, but wait, let's see, how is the situation here?
I love that.
People me, and then I can go in. So I think by now I also see it as a skill to see the situation, but be able to choose when I can let go of that and just express myself in the way that I want to express myself.
Yeah, and then that's beautiful because a lot of people are like, oh, this is who I am. Take it as you may. Deal with it or just piss off.
Mm.
Like that's the kind of attitude. But I love that you approach this situation from a point where I was like, I'm going to see if this is my cup of tea. And if it's not worth my peace, I'm going to go my own way. It wasn't like, you had a very gentle approach and you wanted to be accepting of that culture too. I love that. And
also, sorry to
no worries,
interrupt, but I just realized if we're talking about feminism or about like equality,
yes,
I also sometimes feel that some or people who call themselves feminists are also too harsh. Are again like, indeed, I am who I am, you accept me. And I understand it as a reaction against something that is so, right?
Yeah.
Patriarchy is so rusty.
Yeah.
So to create that movement, I understand we need people who are very much, also solid. But eventually, I think if it's about female strength, it is about adaptability. Not to submit, but to be able to see the situation, the community, the people, the relations, see everything, and then from there make choices.
To make an informed decision.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also to then still express yourself in the way that's needed. But not from a submissive place, but from a place of unity and community.
No, it does. And I think it's nice because I also recall you mentioning one time during our conversation that you're heavy on community. You love the sense of community. Why? Because a lot of the times people just don't give a shit. They don't. And then everyone's like, this is my path. You can join me or you can just like piss off. Like, this is who I am. And it's very like me, I. And
interesting.
But I found this like even for me, right? Yes, I do love my alone time and I love this self journey that I'm on, whatever. But I find this sense of peace and this feeling of just pure love when I'm with my community, like when I'm with my people, my kind of people, kindred souls, right? And like, that's where I'm coming from. I want to know what really draws you to this space of community. What is it?
Yeah, I think it's also dependent on where we're coming from.
Yeah.
So I grew up in the Netherlands, very individualistic society already, very much me.
Yeah.
And so maybe, let's say like this, maybe we're actually very much the same. Who knows? Like in terms of the balance.
Yeah.
But because I come from the individual, I see community is very important. Right. But I also have very good friends here in Sri Lanka who crave for some long time, So I also very much understand, like, if you have all the time community, you also understand the entanglements of relationships and the complexity, and that auntie cannot be with that uncle, and that, it brings about also a lot of complications. But I think because it's where we're coming from. So for me, I'm coming from this individualistic society. Also, the Netherlands, I see more and more that rules become prior over human interaction and human contact. So we follow the rules. If we don't follow, like, it's almost a bit.
What is it?
No, I know. Sorry. No, like I want to. No, I don't want to scold. I don't want to scold my neighboring countries. But it's getting worse. Like I see in daily life and society. And
I mean, I get it in one way. People can be so disappointing. Sometimes the moment you're like, hey, no, community is great. People are lovely. I love connections. I love connecting to people. They screw you inside out. Figuratively and literally. And just, and you're almost like, this is why I should have just stayed in my room and never stepped out of my shell. Like, you suck. But because it's hard, we live in a world where authenticity is so rare. I'm going to get to that in a bit. But like, I do understand why people have lost faith in community, have lost faith in connection. Because a lot of the times I see that people projecting this certain image, which is completely contradicting the inner reality or the inner truth, you know? So really finding your community is tough.
Sure.
Sure. Yeah. Have you come across any challenges in like finding your kind of people, your tribe?
Challenges, I guess, not as much yet. Why? Because I haven't gotten to the level of commitment where it really can become troublesome.
Yeah.
So as a nomadic freelance dancer and artist, I travel around the world and I meet beautiful people and I engage with them and we go.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just an office job and working as colleagues and having a beer on Friday night. It's we go in depth because you are in a studio or in nature and you have a piece that you have to create and it's about emotions, about real things. So you see the worst and the best of each other, you know? And then you leave again. Project's finished and I go. So it's almost like I get a taste of so many beautiful people that I really go into the core, but then I haven't gotten yet to the community so much to see the repercussion of the commitment.
It's like,
but I'm aware that it's, it's a lot of work. So I'm not trying to be like dreaming like community,
unicorns and rainbows.
No. But we are tribal people. Like we need each other.
We do.
I'm sure.
Yeah, we really do need each other. And I think another question that I had was, let's say, if movement was a language, what do you think is missing in the way people speak today?
Well, it's like we're talking baby language. Like,
So if movement was a language, what do you think is missing in the way people speak this language today? Would it help if I shared my opinion so that you can like...
Oh, yeah, nice.
So for me, I feel like if movement's a language, something that's missing is, again, authenticity and intention, right? Just because people... So I feel like a lot of people think, oh, I'm very self-expressive, so this is who I am, which is incorrect. Just because of how you choose to express yourself doesn't necessarily mean that it is a reflection of who they truly are, right? Like when I'm talking to you, I can appear so confident and use my hands and like all this body language that's going on, and I can project this image to you that I am confident. I got my shit together. I have it all. Like I know it, you know? But in reality, my emotions are all over the place. I cannot regulate my emotions. I'm very like, chaotic and all of these things. So I feel like authenticity is something that's missing. But what's your take on it?
Beautiful. Beautiful how you say this, because I'm also thinking how many people are showing themselves in a different frame.
Yes.
And but also would we be ready for a world where everyone is expressing a reflection of who they are?
It's a scary world. It is a scary world. I'm not going to lie. Because if people were really expressing their truth, I'm out the door. Because you obviously get like the the beautiful aspect of it. But at the same time, some people are batshit crazy. I'm not even lying. I know.
But isn't it also because we're so used to, again, this way of sitting, standing,
we're used, exactly.
Right?
Yes.
Like I told you when we had this other talk, I told you about a very good friend of mine also. We call him Dede. Also, right?
His name is Dede too, yeah.
And I mean, love you, Dede. Like he goes, on the street, he doesn't give a... He goes and he is also a crumb dancer. And he just expresses himself, He's had like cops come to him like, are you okay?
He got copped?
Cops.
Oh, right, yeah.
I wasn't taken, but just checking up on him, Or that other people call me like, I don't know what this guy is. But on the other hand,
Yeah.
if you would have the time and even actually take the time to look at him and see this moment happening and unraveling.
Yes. It's beautiful.
One, you'll see that he's the most kind and sweetest person. But second, also you see someone expressing himself creatively in so many ways that you wouldn't have even imagined our body can do.
Yeah.
And it's so inspiring. Like, I've had like 2 or 3 moments that he was just jamming. We were just jamming after a show or something. And I've actually said to him, like, I think I'm okay to die now. Like after seeing him move like that, I was like,
I've seen enough.
So I would like to challenge the thought of what if we would have a world where people would express themselves and see what would happen. Because at first, maybe it's a bit strange and we cannot put it in a frame that we know yet. So it's new, it's weird, it's odd, it's off. Just like, as I said, as I've been perceived in the Netherlands a lot, not always, but a lot, right?
Yes.
I'm different, I look different, I move different, I express myself different.
Yeah.
Who's this girl? And if people would actually take the time, like putting me on a stage and actually taking time to sit and look, then people can have a whole world that comes to them.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see that.
Like I'm thinking now, because like I obviously I'm very heavy on like authenticity and being raw and all of that. And now when you mentioned, well, are you ready for a world where everyone's going to be super raw and authentic? Like, are you ready? I'm not. I don't think so, because everyone's so distinctive in their own ways, and I feel like it's going to be beautiful in one way, but also hard to adjust because we're so used to a certain way of living. And
yes, for sure. And I also have no idea how this practically will be put out, but I can imagine, also because I was just thinking of something that I forgot. Because so expressing, being used to it, another kind of languages. Okay, maybe we'll come back to me later.
No, that's fine. It's I think people tend to express themselves a certain way, again, because they have a desire to fit in. And they have this innate need to be perceived a certain way. Like, obviously, even if I take myself for an example, I want to be taken seriously. Like, I want people to understand how deeply I feel about art and movement and connections in general, everything, right? But it's tough. It's a tough place to be in, because sometimes I find myself, I'm a living paradox, right? Like, because even though I express myself a certain way, I am not all of that sometimes when I'm just by myself, right? And I think that is the beauty of self-expression. And I think authenticity is a missing piece in today's world.
I think I actually can answer your question now. Like, what's missing? Because I realized also, so I was in Japan just before I came here. And it was also beautiful to see there, because they have such a rich tradition still.
Yes.
Now if it's about culture and tradition and dance. And one of the things that I thought was like, again, like in the West, and also countries that are trying to live up to the West.
Yeah.
We are so much in this commercial, like trying to sell, trying to make money.
Right.
I understand, because that's the system we're in. I cannot blame anyone for wanting that. But if I look at Japan as an example, I see the people really have art and expression still as something that's completely parted from money making. Like, it doesn't take just artists. It takes a whole community, a society, to be able to read the art, to be able to see it, to see the layers, to be philosophical about it.
Beautiful.
Right? So again, also to come back to your, are we ready? No, right now we're not ready, because also the people are not able to read the subtleties in expression of someone's body, someone's movements. That's why I'm saying we have to normalize dance, because if we normalize dance, movements, expression,
Yeah.
and more people will be able to read it, to read like, oh, what are the layers? And not to come back to what I was trying to say when I forgot it, is that I think we would implode. Like, I think we're scared of how people would express themselves, but actually now we should be scared because a lot of people are keeping so many things inside, right? And they were imploding. And all of a sudden we hear another person has been killed.
Yeah.
So it's like there's so many things that are happening in the world, also in terms of war and the whole genocide that's happening right now. I think there's so many things that have escalated actually from not expressing, from having to live in a certain framework, and then things will boil up, you know?
Yeah.
There's this rage somewhere in the background.
Just to add to that as well, sometimes you can express yourself, but what if they just shoot you down every time you try to express yourself? You know, every time you try to speak up, every time you try to do the right thing, they end up just completely, being dismissive and disregarding whatever you have to say. They don't love you to sit at the table. And then this is just another side to what you're saying. I understand sometimes when you don't express yourself, it builds up, and then it becomes very ugly. Things get ugly because self-expression is actually a healing thing to our body. And when you don't do it for a very long time, it can lead to really bad things, all kinds of things. But at the same time, what if you've spent your entire life just trying to express yourself, trying to narrate your story, but nobody was actually listening? And nobody really cared.
Sounds like a good novel.
Yeah, right? Directed by... No, but not everyone cares about what you have to say. Not everybody gives a shit about how you feel.
For sure.
Yeah, and it's sucky because there's different angles to how you can really look at this. And I don't think anyone has the right answer to this thing, of course. And I don't expect you to have the right answer to it because I don't myself. But I think these are interesting things that people need to have conversations about and bring importance to. And sorry, I think you were going to continue something else along with it.
Yeah, it's this talk is perfect. Yeah, no, I think indeed people need. I do feel it's a sad story if people would not be willing to listen. But honestly, I already feel this now.
Yeah.
Like, even though I'm a performing artist, I'm used to people come to the audience. They know if it's this frame, you're on stage. We know we can clap, and but I just see over the last years the people's mind are narrow to what is accepted, even on stage. Yeah. On the other hand, there's also extremer things on stage that people feel appalled to. So there's these different dynamics. But yeah, I have the feeling that if we don't try, if we don't even try to express themselves because we're afraid that people won't be able to listen, then we'll stay there. I feel almost when you're saying this, actually more of a fire starts to rise in me. I'm like, no, we need to express ourselves. And I think the more we will, it's a beautiful quote by Nelson Mandela. I think he says something like, if you let your own light shine, it inevitably will allow others to shine theirs. Yeah, which was a quote that my mom had on the toilet for almost all my life. So I remember it. Should have been in the living room. This is such a beautiful quote. I don't know why it landed in the toilet. I don't know. I should ask her. No, it's good. Reminiscing. I don't know for sure. Yeah. When you're alone, also, it's actually oftentimes moments where you actually can be really alone, even if you're living with 7 other people. Yeah, it's in the toilet. That is good point. Fair point. I love your answer to that question. So I think what you're saying is, if movement's a language, something that's missing is people's inability to understand, or rather perceive. Exactly. Yeah. Perception. To read an expression is lacking. I love it. I didn't think of it that way. Because you can talk a language, but if people
and not understanding.
Listening, yeah.
Yeah, I once came across this quote. I think it was on Instagram. It was like, I hope you find someone that you don't have to spend an entire lifetime translating your soul to. I thought that was beautiful because I know it sounds corny, but like, if you really think about it, you can have like a million conversations and still not be understood. And even though we are having a conversation, listening is one thing, understanding is a whole other ballgame, right? And I think a lot of people listen to reply. It's like, oh no, but I have this to say. Like,
Yes.
no, my turn. Not like, hey, what are you actually saying? Or why are you saying that? Where are you coming from? I struggle with that too, to be honest. I'm not saying that, everyone else. I think we all struggle with that. But
for sure, this reminds me actually of a moment in terms of dance. So it wasn't a conversation. It was a physical conversation. So I was in a bar. I think I just came back actually from India.
Okay.
In 2020. It was just before the whole lockdown period. One of the last times that I went out. There was a DJ that was playing, so I knew him. So I was like, I'll come, even though I didn't know anyone there in the pub. At first they had live music and then it would turn to the DJ. Then I just noticed everyone was drinking. See? Second one was no one was paying attention to each other, but everyone wanted to be seen. And I just noticed this, and I was not even dancing. I was just like walking around, and I just noticed like all these like bodies like clenching again, like, go. And I was just thinking, no one is actually seeing each other, but everyone wanted to be seen. So at one point when we moved to the DJ, I actually went on stage where the musicians before were. I just went there. And I was just started jamming on the music, like big, making my aura huge. And then, and then I started to involve the people. So I started to have interaction with the people while I was on stage. Then I went off and then I said, you go. And one boy was like, nah. And I was like, yeah, go. So then one guy went on stage.
Okay.
Was very like
shy,
but he also didn't. But it was also drunk enough to be. So he did like a weird thing, and the boys were also clapping because that's what they did before for me. And then it became this whole circular thing where every time someone went on stage, and everyone started to clap, so it became like a communal thing. One,
I love it.
And second, everyone was seen, and everyone was able to actually also take that space. So that was for me was one of those like significant moments. I was like, yes,
what you said just hit me. You said that nobody was seeing each other, but they wanted to be seen.
What? Everyone.
That is, can we take a moment to like think about it? That is really, like, I'm just like, whoa. Like, this is a type of conversation you like have like a day and just like, whoa. Just like, did you hear that? Did you hear that? Like, no, because it is so true. And how did you notice that? How did you notice that? Like, nobody was seeing each other, but they wanted to be seen.
Yeah. How do I describe this? The body language. Like, of course, as a dancer, I'm studying the body all my life. So I think I just saw the way that people were like also in terms of like peripheral vision, not being aware of each other and then making noise and being big, but no one's looking at you. And then you try to be more bigger. Sorry, my English.
Yeah.
It's like that.
Wow, yeah. No, like that makes sense. And and do you feel like after what you did, just like dragging them in like to the stage and making them really...
It went very organic. It was like only the first guy that was a bit difficult. And then it was just like everyone wanted to go, And then there was this girl that was a bit shy. I was like, there you go, Lily. I was a dancer when I was younger, but I don't dance anymore. And then she was like, I haven't danced like this for so long. I was like, yes.
I love that. And did you see them connecting with each other?
Yes, exactly.
More different.
Even the people that didn't know each other yet.
Yeah.
So it became a whole, like, everyone got involved. So I was like, this is like significant moment, one of those.
I love it. It really goes to show your love for community and like how this is such a small thing that you did, but it really speaks volumes, I would say.
But also to create balance, right?
Yeah.
It's not just community. It's about having a balance because there was a disharmony. That's basically what I feel. And then I also don't want to be in the space. So maybe it's very selfish,
Yeah.
Like if there's no space for anyone. So then I rather go. Or I stay and see if I can
harmonize,
balance the situation.
I love it. And okay, yeah, I think that was a beautiful example. Do you have, this is a question I typically ask a lot of people, and that is, what's that one conversation that changed the trajectory of your life, and a conversation that's very close to your heart that you always kind of reflect back on? Do you have a conversation?
Yeah, I think it didn't start as a conversation, but it ended up. It was in the summer of 2019. I remember very clearly because it was sort of a starting point of a transformation.
Right.
Really felt like a strong transformation. I was in Portugal to do a dance intensive. Follow it. And I got classes by Rakesh Shuket. Rakesh Shuket. He's an Indian. He used to do Kalari Payat, but he's been in the contemporary dance field for very long, and he's created his own method.
Right.
It's called Intact Method. And I've already had teachings of him before. Now again at this intensive in Portugal, and we were having the 6th time, I think, that we came together as a group. We were just going to start the whole class. And right at the end of his description of what we're going to do, we had to make couples and stuff. And there was a friend of mine who already put his arm on my back, like, hey, we're going to be together. Yeah. And the moment I wanted to turn around to my friend, the teacher, Rakesh, he took my wrist, pulled me and said, no, you're going to sit on the ground and ground yourself. And at that moment, I just sort of started crying like a kid. I was like, oh, happening. I didn't know what was happening to me. It was so strange. Even the tears came. I don't know. And then it was a 2-hour class or even longer. And I've just been sitting still in a lotus position for 2 hours, even though I didn't at that time regularly meditate or sit still at all. Like I'm always moving.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden I was sitting still and I had to ground myself, he said, and I didn't understand it. And I was crying and so many things went through me. I was like, what did he see that I didn't see? And turned out this class was all about stepping into the other person's shoes, being the other person almost in this couple. And apparently he had seen throughout the first 3 days, he had seen in me that I was all the time with other people. Like my energy was not in myself, but I was around me. And so I had this whole session sitting there. In the evening we talked and he said, yeah, I saw that you were not, you didn't have a pillar. You were already too much with other people. So I understood if I had done the class, again, I would be doing something that's actually not good for me. So he just did it for me. He didn't do it to, I wasn't, nothing wrong happened. It was actually a very good thing. So I was sitting there and I meditated and so much shit came out, like emotions, thoughts. And after in the evening, we had a conversation and he said, think of yourself at the end of this life. What would you be? How would you look like? How would you visualize yourself? Then if you have that, draw yourself, draw it. Tomorrow, don't interact with other people. This festival, right? Everyone's training together. Don't interact with people. Only be with yourself, become friends with yourself, and be that person that you want to be at the end of your life. Like a role play. So next day, I wake up and I try to be, as an experiment, life experiment, try to be the person that I wish to be at the end of my life.
And who was that person?
I went to nature, one of the biggest parts. I went actually under a big tree, sitting under a big tree. I meditated there for I don't know how long. It was a beautiful big tree that was entangled in thorns of another weed. But it was still thriving and it still had its things. And for me, that big tree became sort of I want to be that victory. I want to, be strong, like resilient. Even if the thorns are there, I want to be resilient and shining. That's the thing. And I felt I was much more calm. I was much more with myself, indeed. Like, let the people come to me instead of me always having to go to other people. And also much more observant. So in the sense of that I'm already connected with people, even if I'm not always engaging. Like because I'm observant and I see everything happening around me, that already fills me. And I already feel part of the community, even without actively being in it. Which brings me, if you're okay with it, brings me to sort of the end of this transformation phase, because it was from this people pleaser going to being my own pillar, being my own best friend. And that transition was like, took at least 3 years, I think. Then I had ayahuasca retreat. I'm not allowed to say that, I don't know.
How was that? I've always wanted to try ayahuasca.
Good. Yeah.
I know I'm not supposed to be saying
No, if you feel the calling, then it will come to you. Just make sure you're with the right people.
Because I know, like, if you're going on an ayahuasca, I hope I'm pronouncing it right.
Yeah, perfect.
Ayahuasca treat, you have to stop listening to secular music. There's a specific type of music you can listen to. You have to be like vegetarian, I think, and you have to do a lot of lifestyle changes.
So no alcohol, drugs, no smoking, no sex, no beans, I think, no raisins. Like,
right, okay, so like no celibate, like celibacy for like, I think for about 2 weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and how was that? Was this in like Peru or?
No, unfortunately not. I was just in France.
Okay,
in the Ardennes. I know. For me, it was a conscious choice to do the ayahuasca. It was also a calling that I've had long before. I even checked here in Sri Lanka when I was last time in Sri Lanka 2004. Then I was in Sri Lanka. I wanted to check if it was possible, but the person was not here. So I was like, oh, we'll come. And then I went back to the Netherlands, and then somehow this just came on my path. I was like, oh, okay, let's do it. But the funny thing is that I found myself in exactly the same position, in like lotus position, meditating with a group around me that was very active in the experience, and me more observant on the outside, but still being with the group, being with the community. So what had happened is that, I'll fast forward a bit. We had the first ceremony, and from that first ceremony, I got a lot of information. And one of the information was, I need to trust myself. I need to trust myself in order to be able to go on this ayahuasca journey. I have to trust myself in ways of how to express myself. I have to trust myself that I'm able to communicate with people without needing substances, even. So after this, the second ceremony happened also in that whole retreat. And I told them that I will not drink again. I will not take the ayahuasca.
Right.
They've never had a sober person in the retreat. So for them, it was a bit strange. Also, even the ones who guided, they even take a little bit always to be able to guide people.
Yes.
So for them, it was a bit...
There's like a moderator. And
yes, exactly. Yeah, it's all really well guided. But I was very certain. I was with this pillar, right? And I said, I will join the trip. I will join this journey, but I won't drink. And they accepted. And it was also a bit risky because I felt, again, the rules and the frame is,
they usually don't
paid for it. Yeah, I'm here. Maybe. But I felt it very certain. I was like, and even if it doesn't work, I'll find a way out of this place. I'll go away. Like, that's how certain I was. But they let me. And so what happened the second ceremony, it usually takes like 6 hours. I was sitting still in lotus position for 6 hours. And I was still having this whole journey and trip, having visualizations, feeling things through me, moving things, healing trauma.
So like the first time you took ayahuasca, like this voice communicated to you, perhaps your subconscious, or maybe like, it could be anything, that you don't really need this substance to go on this spiritual journey. I love it.
Exactly. So that's what I did, and that's what I got confirmed.
What kind of visualizations did you experience? Is it like super personal to your life, or is it just like a more spiritual kind of movie almost?
Yeah, for everyone's different, right?
Yeah.
For me, I had both very trippy one where everything's like kaleidoscope, but also very personal. No, I should say very story-wise, like emotional, related to a person. And also, there's so much that came to me that's not related to my life. That was from outside. I have no idea. Maybe from the people who are in the room, or
right.
Like at one moment, I saw this huge buffalo like walking on me, and I just felt that it was the fear of the guy that was next to me. Like he was in full anxiety, and so I tried to like that was.
Was he voicing it out?
Yeah.
Oh, and then
he didn't say buffalo.
Yeah.
He didn't use the word, but he was screaming, and he was like in
right. Okay.
Yeah, and but that's one of the things. I also had a beautiful moment with my grandmother where I really felt I was holding her hand, and it was like this weird ass time travel space thing. I was in
yeah, because like I've watched some of the documentaries on this. Yeah. And people, it's such a spiritual transformation for them. Like they have conversations with, again, like dead relatives, or like they end up having a conversation with Mother Nature, or like God, or whoever they believe in. And it's almost like a conversation where they're providing guidance while they're like tripping.
Yes.
So it's nice.
It's very much about transformation. If you just want to do it for the ride, like let's
I don't think that's the right. Yeah,
good intention.
Yeah, it's not.
She's wild. She's like, we call her the mother plant, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's from like a plant, and they brew it, and yes. Interesting.
But yeah, so to come back to this transformation, what I've noticed that at that moment I was sitting there for 6 hours. I don't meditate usually. I meditate in life, but
it's
I don't
hard for Dante to stay still. Yeah.
So for me, but it felt like almost heaven compared to the night before. So I felt I could hold it. I was very much able to just sit still for 6 hours, not do anything, but work with the energies around me. And so it was also interesting because I felt, okay, now everyone is on this trip, like indulged with the ayahuasca.
Yeah.
And yet I feel I'm on the same level as there. Like I'm allowed, like I allow myself to be in this space, because the frame is that this is what's happening. Same goes for the other substances. So going to a club, right? This night where I was talking about with the other people dancing, I didn't drink any alcohol. I didn't have any drugs in order for me to be confident and go on stage. It's that there's a framework where other people are drinking, and I feel comfortable there to express that part of me, because I'm like, okay, at least we all know in this framework, we're allowed to go a bit nuts,
Yeah. Right.
So then I can allow myself to be myself there and like see where the situation goes.
Yeah. So if you're like under the influence of substance, that behavior is accepted because like, all right, you're drunk. So it's okay if you act crazy. Or like you're very expressive in this moment because, oh yes, you smoked or you drank or whatever.
Yeah.
But the moment you do it sober, it's like, oh, you can let loose like that?
But they don't have to know. Like most people always think I'm the most drugged of all.
They don't have to know. I love it. It's almost like you are defying this framework and you're attacking it in your own way. Like, hey, you don't need this.
Yes,
you can do it by yourself. Amazing.
And also still no judgment to
yes.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, everyone should.
No, but the thing is, a lot of people think that that's the only way.
Exactly.
Right? That to have a deep conversation with someone else, to connect to another being, you need to be high on something, or you need to be like going through this traumatic experience. And like, I don't think that. I think you can, like, we're having this, I think this is a beautiful, deep conversation that we're having about everything. And so I think that's very possible, and people find it so hard to believe that it's possible.
Yes.
So what's next for you in this journey? What are your plans?
Well,
what's the next step?
Right now, first of all, I will go back to the Netherlands and I will perform again for a show. That's actually it's a nice show. It's a physical theater show where I'm also dancing and singing. And it's about it's sort of like the last hospital on the earth, something like that.
Oh,
people will still this catastrophe happened, and people will still go there to be able to be nursed. And there's only one nurse that has to take care of it.
Are you the nurse?
No, no. So I'm sort of like I'm again this weird in between person.
Okay,
I am there with the group, but I'm also not really that part of the group.
Okay,
so I'm like playing that I'm one of the patients, but actually I'm sort of like a spirit that comes through.
I can totally imagine you doing that. That sounds about right. The wandering spirit,
just troubling here and there, making life a little bit more interesting for the patients. Yeah, that's a bit my story there. And also, eventually, I allow them to go to the afterlife, which for the nurse is like panic, but actually, it's also a moment of this question also of life and death. I'm going too much philosophical now, but I love it. This idea that we're also so much living that we need to be immortal, but life is mortal. So we need to enjoy every moment that we have, also in moments of expressing ourselves. And I think in a sense, death is part of life, So if we are allowing ourselves also to be like, okay, things will vanish, things will go, then we will enjoy life also much more. And then we will be also more expressive, more here, more present.
Yes.
So I think that's a bit the role, because the role was questionable.
Your interactions seem more meaningful then.
Yeah.
You don't just engage in conversation or like this desire to fit in or like.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's more depth.
Much to lose. You're like, okay, I live this life.
Yeah.
How it will go. So let's make the most of it. Let's try. Let's experiment.
Let's try.
See what happens. Yeah. So that's my role a bit, because first the question was also like, am I sort of like the devil? But then actually I was like, no, I think it's more like it's between life and death. That's a bit. That's going to be until end of November. We're going to have a tour around the Netherlands only. And then after I'm planning, but that's for next year, to see if I can also build up a retreat here. A dance retreat here in Sri Lanka. Like, this is very much still in the beginning phase, but I really hope to have this idea also ingraining my own in-tune creation method. We didn't actually talk about that, but allowing people, you don't have to be a dancer, but allowing people to come to the retreat and explore ways of expressing themselves, having a safe space, having that community, even if it's for that short period of time, diving deep and being able to express themselves.
And the method that you're using is in-tuned creation.
Correct. Yes.
Right.
It's also something that I've been developing over the last years. And actually, it's very much just about being aware, like having a full awareness. And I think our senses are becoming less and less, right? We're all the time on our phones. I also catch myself with that. We're on our phones, digital world, again, this framework of sitting, standing, working behind the office. We're not using other ways of movement. No, we're not. We used to live in the trees. We used to be with nature all the time, adapting, and our bodies would adapt. So I would like to find a place that, at least for now, creates a framework where people are allowed to express themselves, are allowed to move, are allowed to be free and open their senses, and then be with their surroundings. And I really hope to do that here in Sri Lanka also, because then I can put that in like rural areas and bring the people from there also in there, so that there's an interaction with outsiders, insiders. It's also not going to be again about I come there and I will show how it's done, right? I told you before, I will go there, feel how the situation is, how are the people moving here, and then from there on choosing how to express.
So I have one final question.
Yeah.
What's your advice to people who kind of struggle with physical expression? We as dancers, it's easy for us to tune into that, tune into that energy. But for most people, it's difficult to be as freely as expressive as they want to be. And what's your advice to them? how can they get out of that?
Okay, so I think it really depends on the person. Some people really need people around them because from themselves, they are not being able to be activated physically. So they need people around them in order for them to be influenced energetic wise. That's why you have all these raves, you know? There are energies around you and then people start to move as well.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Other people maybe actually don't need people. They should be better alone. Maybe go, guilty pleasure in front of that mirror again, have that favorite song on, go into lip syncing, whatever. I mean, that's a way of going. Other ways is maybe just be aware of everyday life moments and be like, is there any uncomfortable, like, are you uncomfortable? Like I'm sitting here, maybe don't see me fully. I'm also wearing a long dress, but I will always find a way to make myself also sit comfortably.
Yeah.
And even though maybe the standard is that I would either have my feet on the ground, have my legs crossed, which is understandable.
Yeah, I would very much like to sit in a cross-legged position right now, but it's really tough. I don't want to scare people.
Let's not. Self-attraction. But yeah, I would always so look at everyday life movements and see if there's, are you able to maybe move in that, change in that, like sit, move, find different ways of being, and listen to the breath also. Like if you feel that your breath is like tight or hold back, how can you relax in that? How can you find ways to, and actually from the breath, there is always already energetic movement happening.
Finding your flow.
Yeah. So there's like several tools because everything will be different.
No, I think I love it. Thank you so much, Laila. I love this conversation. I feel like we can go on forever talking about everything, but thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
And love and light.